For what we like to call the Feels Like a Monday Tuesday. Wheels with Wondra today. Snell Motors on the corner of Madison Avenue and Highway 22 in Mankato. Good morning, Jeff. Happy New Year.
Good morning. Glad I can help you make it feel like a Monday.
Yeah. Well, it's always a good thing when it's Tuesday and it feels like Monday because we're one day ahead of the game. But It's tough to get, we'll have the Wednesday drag going on when we get back into things. Everybody has one, right? It's right there on the dash and it lights up once in a while. And you wonder, now what? The check engine light is there on your vehicle, and sometimes it requires immediate assistance, and other times you got a little while to wait. But what do we need to know about the check engine light from you this morning?
Like I always say, maintenance. Don't ignore it. You just get it diagnosed and looked at. So I wanted to talk about the top 5 most common reasons a check engine light comes on in a vehicle. First one is going to be the O2 or the oxygen sensor. I feel like this is 95% of them. Every time I plug it in, it says O2 sensor, oxygen sensors, like every single time.
Is that as easy as like an air filter, or what is it?
Not quite,
Okay.
but it's also not like you have to tear apart the engine to replace it kind of thing.
Okay.
I think it starts at about $110 to get it replaced. Every engine's different, obviously. Every vehicle's different, but starts at about $110 to get that replaced. So it's not like a catastrophic amount, but the oxygen sensor measures the amount of unburned oxygen in your vehicle's exhaust system. So if you just let that check engine light ride, like you go to your local mechanic or AutoZone or buddy plugs it in, he's like, yeah, it's O2 sensor, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Your engine will burn more fuel than needed. That's kind of a big deal.
Sure.
You'll experience loss of fuel economy up to 40%, and faulty sensors can cause damage to your spark plugs and catalytic converter. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But let's talk about that 40% number. Say you get a car that gets 32 miles to the gallon, driving like a Grand Prix or something, and your O2 sensor's on, you got 100,000 miles on it. I'm not going to waste money on this car. It's $110. Just an O2 sensor, not a big deal. All right, so let's say you're 32 miles to the gallon. You're getting 60% of that now. If you drive 15,000 miles per year, which is pretty common, not a high-mile driver, about average, it's going to cost you $58 more in fuel at $2.25 for fuel per gallon, $58 a month more in fuel, and $700 a year in fuel. So by ignoring that $100 repair, it's going to cost you $700 long term. It seems like it's always the case. When you put it off and ignore it, it's going to cost you more long term. So it's definitely worth the investment on whatever you're driving. Just for the fuel savings alone, you'll make that money back in 2 months. So that's number one, most common. Second one, gas cap is loose or missing or damaged, cracked or something of that nature. You dropped it, ran it over, but it still fit, kinda. So I put it back on. So obviously the gas cap just seals the fuel system and helps maintain pressure within the fuel tank. It's not just to prevent like debris from falling into it. It actually has a pressure job. It also prevents the gasoline fumes, the hydrocarbons, from being released into the atmosphere. Since we're all green and love Mother Nature, we don't want that to happen. So by not having the gas cap on, you can lose fuel to evaporation. So fuel can obviously exit through the where the cap is missing, and that's going to cost money in itself. But that's one of those things where if you just tighten it, click, click, good to go, that's $0 to fix, all the way up to $30. Not a huge deal. Get the check engine light off, so that way if it comes back on, you know it's not that, it's something else. But that's the most inexpensive one of all. Next one, this will be the most expensive of all. That's the catalytic converter. Catalytic converter helps protect our environment. I love it. Going green again. By converting harmful carbon monoxide into carbon dioxide. And damage to this usually happens because of our top reasons the check engine light comes on. 1 is that oxygen sensor I talked about. 2 is the mass airflow sensor. And 3 is your spark plugs and wires don't get replaced in a timely manner. That all causes that catalytic converter to fail. So we don't really have we hear some of these loud trucks driving by. Obviously, we're not too strict on emissions tests, but you're definitely going to experience reduced performance and fuel economy, and your engine's going to run at a higher temperature, which can cause more damage down the road. This repair is going to start at about $400 and work its way up. The catalytic converter part itself is pretty spendy. But again, it's one of those things where it can prevent more damage down the road. And I talked about annual fuel savings. So let's say that the same 40% holds true in this. you're looking at $700 a year on your 32 miles per gallon car. That's going to pay for 2 catalytic converters almost in that 1 year of driving, so definitely worth taking a look at. Next one is the mass airflow sensor. That's going to measure the amount of air entering the engine and determine how much fuel is needed to run your engine efficiently. Obviously, if that is not working, it won't be running efficiently. So that's also going to be able to cause damage to the spark plugs, O2 sensors, and catalytic converter. See how they're all related here?
Yeah.
And then the last one, spark plugs and wires. Talked about that and all the other ones. By not doing any of those other things, you can damage these. Hence the reason that they're all kind of related and in the top 5 reasons that the check engine light comes on. But spark plugs ignite the air and fuel mixture in the combustion chamber of your vehicle, and the spark plug wire delivers the spark from the ignition coil to the spark plugs. If you don't replace it, you're also going to experience poor performance, reduced power. The engine has like a ticking or a missing. It just kind of drives funny because it's not sparking in one of those cylinders. And then we're back to the reduced fuel economy part. If you're not going to fix your vehicle for any other reason, do it for the better fuel economy. But so the bad plugs and wires can cause clogged catalytic converters, damage to the ignition coils, and the number 1, O2 sensors, all back again. Plugs and wires start at about $210. Varies drastically depending on the engine, but say it double that, $420. Fuel savings we talked about, $700. So all of these are worth doing. It's the beginning of the year. You're going to make your money back on any of these repairs by the end of 2017. And when you trade it in at Snell Motors, it's also going to help me so I don't have to repair it before I sell it.
There you go. It always ends up being really nice when it turns out to be something as dumb as like, man, my gas cap was loose. Click, click, fixed. You feel so good about that,
Yep.
right? But in the long run, if it does cost you a couple few $100s, but you're going to save $700 or more, regardless, that's worth doing right there. Stop in and see Jeff and the gang down at Snell Motors. New, used, all of that going on. I believe we'll get some more winter weather somewhere along the way, too. Maybe a sled for you. Maybe when the freezing cold temps break, you'll get your car washed. Or maybe, since it doesn't matter to them what the temperature is, they can just bring it inside and wipe it out for you so it doesn't freeze solid. You can get washed up at any time at Snell Auto Wash. There's a lot going on. You guys pretty much own that corner of the world. Stop down and see Jeff and the gang at Snell Motors. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Wheels with Wondra today. Snell Motors on the corner of Madison Avenue and Highway 22 in Mankato on Minnesota 93.
At Connors Plumbing,